First story. I, 37M, found my fiancé 40F on a dating app. I, 37M, have been with my fiancé 40F, Linda, for 8.5 years. We met on Bumble and have been living together for the past 6 months. A few months ago I began having health problems related to erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation, which did a number on my mental health. It took a toll on my relationship with Linda, who I think struggled to wrap her head around the mental health aspect. I began to feel like I could not open up to her about how much I was struggling, and had to manage her happiness for the sake of the relationship. Eventually things came to a head one day, and I admitted to her that I was having suicidal thoughts, which greatly upset her. We agreed that it would be best if I left our shared apartment and went home to stay with my parents for a while to recuperate, focus on rehab, either physio for my condition, and get myself feeling better again mentally. A few weeks after moving back home, I could sense Linda growing distant with me. She admitted she was struggling with me opening up about feeling suicidal. She then called me up in tears one day to say that she wants a break. I am shocked and hurt, but I agree to the break as long as we do not date or see other people, as I would prefer we separated, full stop, if that were the case. She agrees. One evening, Linda reveals she is heading to a night out with a friend of hers who I'll call Michael. I have had a bad feeling about Michael for some time for reasons I can't put my finger on. I had a feeling deep in my gut that something wasn't right that evening. I end up downloading Bumble and creating a fake profile. I set it to our city and spend a while that evening swiping through women's profiles. Eventually, my worst fears are confirmed. I encounter a profile made by Linda with very recent photos of her. I call Linda up immediately and confront her. I am distraught and choking back tears. She repeatedly denies having made the profile in earnest. She claims that Michael made the profile for her as a way of getting her out of the rut caused by our break. I eventually calm down after Linda reassures me she would never do anything to hurt me. The following day, Linda asks me how I managed to find her on Bumble. I come clean and say that I had a bad feeling about the situation and went with my gut. She goes a bit quiet on me, and then insinuates that I am creepy for stalking her. I retort that at the end of the day, I found her on a dating app, and that she is really not in a position to be taking the moral high ground. She agrees, albeit not without a bit of silent protest. Fast forward a few months and I am feeling better about life. I moved back in with Linda, and we try our best to pick up where we left off. I managed to forgive Linda but had a hard time looking past Michael's actions. Whenever Linda offered to meet up with Michael for drinks, I would decline and stay at home. Linda eventually confronts me on my refusal to hang out with Michael. I come clean and tell her I would rather not spend time around and pretend to play happy families with someone who meddled in my relationship and nearly caused my partner and I to separate. Linda doesn't take well to this and spends the rest of the day in a bit of a huff with me. I am feeling a bit perplexed by the situation. Linda seems to have a hard time understanding why I don't particularly like Michael or want to hang out with her. It is making me wonder whether the story about Michael making the Bumble profile for her is true or not. One thing that also struck me about the Bumble profile is that it has pretty striking similarities to the one Linda had when we first started dating. Very similar wording and personal information, beyond the obvious things like age, etc. At the end of the month, Linda is going away on a girls' trip with another one of their friends to another city for the weekend. I don't want to tell Linda that she can't go, but I'm not thrilled by the situation either. On the other hand, so let's start by pretending her version of events, that Michael made her a dating profile, is accurate. Why do I always think Michael would do that? Do I think Michael, perhaps, heard that after only 6 months of living together, intimacy, including physical intimacy, wasn't great, that Linda was unhappy to the point of tears, that you were threatening suicide, that I moved out, and that the two of us were taking a break? Or do I think Michael actually got an unbiased perspective from Linda in which she acknowledged my mental and physical health concerns, how hard I were working, our agreement to not see other people, and the fact that Linda was 100% committed to this relationship? Be really honest with myself here. I realize Linda is okay continuing the friendship with Michael because she knows Michael's perspective. Michael's perspective is likely that this relatively short relationship has a lot of problems to such a level that it shouldn't be taken seriously. During this saga, Linda is barely supportive of my mental and physical health. The idea that she'd be advocating for me with her friends and/or portraying me in the best possible light is laughable. I've learned any person been in shoes likely very similar to Michael's before. Someone I care about complains, shit-talks their partner, processing how unhappy they are in the relationship, tries to end it with appropriate encouragement from friends, and then ends up on a break. Of course, by that point, it's hard for Michael to support the relationship when they see enough or think they see enough to believe that their friend or loved one is better off out of the relationship. I've also been in Michael's shoes, in that I've been shocked to later learn the other side, the things a friend wasn't saying when they repeatedly said things that made me unsupportive of their relationship. A former good friend described her partner as controlling for years and left out the part where she cheated. Another points out routinely that her husband is incompetent at household chores, and neglected to tell me the part where he was raised in a very neglectful foster care situation, and is trying his best to watch YouTube videos and learn to do those chores. Michael knows what Linda is and isn't telling. If your partner was acting aghast at Michael's behavior, I might think otherwise, but the reality is she's likely not appalled because she knows it was a very logical thing for Michael to consider given what Michael did and didn't know. Linda isn't saying I told Michael I was 100% committed to me and would never be interested in dating others. She is instead implying that they told Michael they weren't even sure they wanted to be in the relationship, at the very least. This also tracks with the relationship the two of you had at the time. You were on a break. Most adults think of that as an immature precursor to a breakup, and given the context, my fiancé being concerned about my suicidal ideation, it's very likely Michael was under the impression that Linda wanted out, but was scared to say so for fear I'd worsen. So maybe Michael made the profile, maybe Linda did. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle, in that she was probably encouraged to make it by Michael, and maybe even Michael did the initial downloading, Linda edited, etc. However, and this is the hard part to wrap my head around, it doesn't actually matter. The end result is that my fiancé has at least one friend who doesn't support her relationship. The end result is that I don't trust her. The end result is that I've now at the point where to considering unhealthy and controlling behavior to avoid confronting the realities of that distrust, and I've blaming Michael for a situation. But Linda absolutely caused, whether it was intentional or not. I know our relationship just ended already. Neither of us sound happy. Trust is pretty much required for a healthy relationship, and it's clear that's not there. Her friend, presumably influenced by whatever she's saying to them, thinks she's in a rut. If I'd actually forgiven Linda, I would be much more tolerating of Michael, because nothing Michael actually did was that abhorrent. Michael made a dating profile for an unhappy friend who likely had made it sound like her relationship was over. Linda isn't angry at Michael, because Linda fully understands why Michael did it and doesn't think it was that out there of an action. The only way that works is if Linda has led Michael to believe this relationship is not worth respecting or advocating for. For this reason, I could do with some input. Linda seems keen for me to play happy families with Michael, which I have absolutely no intention of doing. I also wonder if I was a bit too quick to forgive Elle, and that there is perhaps more to the story than she is telling me. Thanks in advance. I went on a break with my fiancé, later found her on a dating app and confronted her. She claims a friend of hers made the profile for her to help get her out of a rut. I still is mystified that my fiancé doesn't understand why he is angry at said friend, and is now starting to wonder if there is more to the story. Second story. 7 months after D-Day. I've commented on here but never posted. It's difficult, to say the least, so much I've learned so much that I still feel lacking. I gave my WW the world, loved her more than life itself, and now I struggle to even look at her. For context, this was a 1-week emotional and physical affair with a workmate on the other side of the country. I find myself raging and wishing he would just spontaneously combust. It makes me furious to know that in just a 1-week trip, she threw me down the gutter and told this guy she loved him and gave him everything. How after years of marriage to a husband who put you above everything, do you do that? The worst part is, I'm better than AP in every measurable way. Richer, smarter, funnier, more loving. Definitely more attractive. It made zero sense to me. This 22-year-old fresh college employee somehow managed to make my wife feel good, and so she did this. It freaking sucks. I went and read our old convos and my journals, and it's not like I wasn't doing those things either. I constantly sent her hearts and I love you messages and did small and big things. I tried to fill every love language and showered her with gifts and affirmations, love and faithfulness. It should be noted that WW has done everything she possibly can think of to reconcile. Counseling, moving out for over a month, doing every small act of kindness she can think of. She really doesn't even seem like the same person. She leaned into Christianity. Now she prays and reads her Bible constantly. She must have gone through 30 books the past 7 months, some of them multiple times. She is quitting her career shortly. I asked her to hold off because we need the money for another year to be ready to survive off just my job. I track the days I get emotional flooding, whether it's sadness or anger. They've gone down substantially from 5 per day to 1 every 3 days. But there's still this sense of just numbing dread at moving forward. Despite her literally doing whatever and anything I ask and more, I can't bring myself to feel anything towards her. I've said I love you, but IDK, it's so painful because of the hurt she caused. Now, I find myself struggling with insecurities I never had before. If she didn't love me at my peak, how could she love this broken, depressed shell of a person I am now? I've gained 20 pounds, I don't do anything nice for her. I barely am affectionate. She says she loves me and she is serving me because God calls her to, but that almost makes it feel worse, like does she feel trapped with me out of guilt? The lying, gaslighting, and trickle truths haunt me. She has openly admitted she would end her own life if she did this again. But if I couldn't see the last affair coming, how do I know literally anything? WW really has gone all in on reconciliation. The week of D-Day I was ready to divorce, but I got to a point where I told WW I was willing to try, but she'd have to do all the work since she effed it all up. Now I'm at a point where I want to try and help too but don't know how. I both hate and love her. I'm numb to the world and terrified I'm making the wrong choices. I try reading my Bible like she does and praying, but I can't help but feel alone still. I know God is in control, but why would he let this happen? I was a leader in my church before this, and now I can't even go without being afraid of who knows about the affair. It's becoming my identity, and I hate that. If you didn't notice, we are fairly well off. I flew us to South Africa, where we went on a private safari resort and also went to UAE for a vacay. The trip was extremely helpful, and it was there that I realized I cycle between anger, sadness and hope and how to deal with that roller coaster. We spent lots of time talking and also alone in reflection. I also went on a backpacking trip with my brother in Cali and a trip to Florida alone. I found solace in travel because it gave me time to compile my thoughts and decide what to do. I guess I should have been more clear. I was a leader in our church of various ministries. After this happened, I had to step down to focus on my failing marriage. This causes me to wonder who knows and who doesn't. I have been working with the pastor and WW meets with the pastor's wife weekly for counseling. It's just tough because I feel like this sin deprived God of what could have been a happy, healthy family and the church focused on serving Him. She has definitely done tons of soul searching and identified the why behind her action, but it still doesn't make sense to me. I think it's because no good reason to cheat exists. Wow, yes, this is also true. We have tried stuff like the travel, which helped in counseling together and apart, but nothing to help the feelings you mention. Hysterical bonding was definitely there months 2 to 4, but intimacy has died way down now. Date night is something that I've been planning for us. You're right, I took 100% of the lead before. I always thought we were a team, but it turns out she was just a yes person along for the ride. Now she is being proactive to heal and grow, but not with intimacy or activities. I think she is trying to give me space and not initiate intimacy if I am in a low spot and want alone time. I will look up that program. Anyways, sorry for the rant. I needed to get my thoughts out 7 months after the worst day of my life, and I am slowly crawling back towards normalcy. Any thoughts, prayers, or advice are welcome. Betrayed or wayward, I'll welcome any input. Third story. She was sleeping around. That was the reason for the dead bedrooms. Like the title says, our whole 7 years of relationship, the sex was an issue. Maybe it was good for the first 3 months, then a month was awful. No sex, or maybe once with duty sex. Then I broke the relationship and she promised to change. She never had the money to live by herself. Maybe that's why she said that. Then lots of things happened. I do believe we loved each other for a few years. Maybe she was sleeping around. Sex was slowly being more scarce. The lot blowjob was about 2 years ago, and she said it disgusted her, so she wouldn't do it anymore. She never wanted to have sex more than once or twice in a row. I developed premature ejaculation, probably for the lack of sex and lots of masturbation. The last year was the worst. I said several times we are over, but then we would sort of go along like it did not happen. I cheated with an ex, then paid for sex 2-3 times during that year. On Sunday I opened her tablet and saw her WhatsApp open. I saw a conversation that she was having where she was bragging about 3 guys she had slept. By the context, it was recent. Last one was last Friday when she told me she had to work late. It wasn't clear, but she also went out with a 4th guy on Saturday. When she told me she went to see her sister who was sick from an eye disease, my heart started racing and I wanted to vomit. I couldn't hold it and sent her the captures. I was dumb, could have dug a little deeper and save all the conversations with her friend and look for the names of all the guys, but couldn't do it before she closed the WhatsApp. I took all my shit out of the house. Next day confronted her. After a lot of crying both ways, she said she never had an orgasm with me and her stupid woman boss told her she had to solve that and started introducing her to men since May of this year. I know I also cheated on her, but I still feel betrayed. I wanted her to be the mother of my children. I told her how inadequate and insecure she made me feel and how I could never trust a woman ever again. We had sex 3 times. Crying and kissing for hours. She was all that I wanted her to be in bed, but I knew it was only because she wants me to forgive her and not let go back to being poor. It's just like when we broke up 4 months into the relationship. Fourth story. Deserving better. For those who have gotten through to the other side, do you ever stop feeling like you deserve better? My WW has been loving and kind, especially of late, and is in general being someone I'd want to be married to. I still think she is a beautiful woman, and we've created 15 years of life including 2 children, that I could never recreate with someone else. I feel like I'm dedicated to R, although I still struggle and wonder if I can ever get over it to the point I'm okay being her husband. She latched onto at one point I apparently said I was better than her. I don't feel like I'm better than her in general as a person, despite never being able to get someone I care about like she did me. One thing I can't shake though is feeling like I deserve better. I sometimes felt like this before the affair. I believe she was emotionally abusive and knew how to manipulate me. And even though I had my shortcomings, felt like she was frequently just ugly to me. I've told her all these things and we've kind of settled on. We're building a new foundation and all we can do is apologize and do better, which is true. That's really all we can do. But does anyone else feel like you deserve someone that would just love you and be kind to you and not manipulate, betray and lie to you? Do these feelings fade, and do you ever feel like this person that could tear your heart into a million pieces for a selfish high could be worth your love and adoration? I'm just over 11 months in now, and I feel like the cycle has changed. I don't know if it's improving or not, but different. I don't go through long valleys with brief happy spikes as much. The valley floor has for the most part turned from despair and anger to mostly just apathy and indifference. I don't know if that's good or exhaustion or how to feel about it. She's trying to listen and hear my needs and give them to me. But even when she's doing great, I still just feel blah a lot of the time. I feel like I went from super down 95% of the time to super indifferent 95% off the time, with the last 5% being actually happy feeling. This turned into a little bit of blathering on. Sorry. I mostly just want to know if anyone has experienced this and when, if it changed.